Capitalism is an economic system characterized by private ownership of the means of production and the creation of goods or services for profit. In a capitalist economy, individuals and businesses invest capital in various ventures, seeking to maximize their returns. This system relies heavily on market mechanisms to allocate resources, with prices determined by supply and demand. Competition among producers is seen as a driving force for innovation and efficiency, ultimately benefiting consumers with better products and services. However, critics argue that capitalism can lead to significant income inequality, exploitation of workers, and environmental degradation, as the pursuit of profit often takes precedence over social and ecological concerns. One major issue with capitalism is the significant income inequality it can produce. Wealth tends to concentrate in the hands of a few, leaving large segments of the population with limited access to economic opportunities and resources. This disparity often leads to social tensions and can undermine social cohesion. Furthermore, the pursuit of profit in a capitalist system can result in the exploitation of workers. Businesses aiming to maximize returns might cut costs by reducing wages, avoiding proper working conditions, or neglecting the overall well-being of their employees. Such practices can lead to a cycle of poverty and negatively impact the quality of life for many individuals. Environmental degradation is another critical problem associated with capitalism. The relentless drive for profit can lead businesses to prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability. This often results in overuse of natural resources, pollution, and a general disregard for environmental stewardship. As a consequence, ecosystems suffer, and the planet's health deteriorates, posing risks to future generations. Ultimately, while capitalism can drive innovation and offer consumers diverse products and services, its inherent focus on profit can overshadow social and ecological considerations, leading to significant and often detrimental consequences for society and the environment. It is usually easier to make a profit selling that which caters to man's base nature than those things which require discipline and restraint to enjoy. Christianity, as a religion, and the Church, as its institution, embody values and objectives that often contrast sharply with those of capitalism. While capitalism is driven by the pursuit of profit, individual success, and market competition, Christianity and the Church emphasize spiritual growth, communal support, and moral integrity. The goals and values of Christianity require discipline and cannot be purchased. Yet, the values of Christianity are focused on the Church as a whole even while its teachings focus on the individual, because in reforming the individual is turned into a member of a community. Capitalism has no sense of community. The individual is encouraged to look out for number one. Christianity is founded on the teachings of Jesus Christ, who preached love, compassion, and selflessness. The core principles of Christianity include love and compassion. Christians are called to love their neighbors as themselves and show compassion to those in need. This principle encourages acts of kindness, charity, and support for the less fortunate. Humility and selflessness. Christianity teaches the importance of humility and selflessness, advocating for the prioritization of others' well-being over personal gain. Justice and equality. The concept of justice and equality is central to Christian teachings, which promote fair treatment of all individuals, regardless of their social or economic status. Stewardship of creation. Christians believe in the stewardship of the earth, emphasizing the responsibility to care for and preserve the environment. In contrast, capitalism teaches greed, selfishness, and ego fulfillment. The argument capitalism makes is that if each person does what is best for himself, and if we each look out for our own best interests, the end result will be progress. This is true but only if progress can be measured in the accumulation of property. The Church serves as the institutional embodiment of Christianity, providing a structured environment where believers can gather, worship, and support one another. The Church's objectives often include spiritual guidance. The Church offers spiritual guidance to its members, helping them to navigate their faith journey and grow in their relationship with God. Community support. Churches foster a sense of community, encouraging members to support one another through prayer, fellowship, and acts of service. Social justice. Many churches actively engage in social justice initiatives, advocating for the rights and welfare of marginalized groups and providing aid to those in need. Environmental conservation. The Church often promotes environmental conservation efforts, aligning with the Christian principle of stewardship of creation. However, the objectives of Christianity and the Church often stand in stark contrast to those of capitalism, profit versus compassion. While capitalism prioritizes profit and individual success, Christianity emphasizes compassion and the welfare of others. Competition versus community. Capitalism relies on competition to drive innovation and efficiency, whereas the Church fosters a sense of community and mutual support. Exploitation versus justice. Capitalism can lead to the exploitation of workers and unequal distribution of wealth, whereas Christianity advocates for justice and equality for all individuals. Environmental degradation versus stewardship. The relentless pursuit of profit in capitalism can harm the environment, while the Church promotes stewardship and conservation of the Earth's resources. However, there is a deeper issue between capitalism and Christianity than what is normally discussed. Capitalism is focused on providing for human wants and needs. But it is more correct to say capitalism responds to demand. Demand is a particular word that means capitalism provides or markets what earns the seller a profit, and usually in response to the level of profit that is generated per unit of time. In short, the reality of capitalism is mediated by money. If it does not have a price, it is invisible to capitalism. Which means a market must exist if the product or service is to be provided. The seller must be able to sell the product or service at a profit, or it will not be made available to the consumer, therefore it will not exist. Only sellers and buyers exist in capitalism, there are no other players. Anything other than a seller of goods and services and a buyer of goods and services is not a viable entity within the capitalist environment. They may exist, but they exist outside of the reality that is the capitalist market. Therefore, we have the Church in capitalist nations, but the Church either exists outside of the capitalist system, or it has been turned into a money-making scam. Such churches as are treated as a pool of capital are scams, for they do not do the work of the Church. Churches do not exist to turn a profit. But if we are to be critical of the conventional or modern Church and capitalism, from what angle do we make the criticism? For a Christian, the easy answer is to say these things do not reflect biblical teachings. But this still does not go deep enough, because even so, this still leaves open what the biblical approach is. Do we each bring our own agenda to the table, as Christians? Capitalism has a single answer to every problem, and that is to privatize the asset. Capitalism puts everything into private hands, and the owner then supposedly looks after the asset because it is a source of profits. This does not always work, and not everything can be owned privately. But the point is, what is the Church's response to capitalism and, for that matter, communism? What is the Church's solution to these problems? The solution to every problem, in the mind of a Christian, is to sanctify the elements of the problem. We put them under the ownership of God. As the property of God, we are required to not bring God into disrespect. As stewards of His property, we utilize what is His, to His glory. Like capitalists, a Christian attempts to use what belongs to God to make a profit, but the increase belongs to God. This is why we need the Church. A Christian is paid for the work that he does, we are paid for our labor. But the asset itself belongs to God. We can add value to an asset through our labor, but the asset does not belong to us. We cannot make it our own. Only the labor belongs to us, and it is our labor that is paid for. A capitalist, however, thinks he or she owns the assets licensed to them by the state. The state has no authority to give ownership to anyone. The authority granted to individuals by the state is illegitimate. If one did not create it, one cannot own it. Mankind creates nothing but the value produced by labor. So, capitalism is based on a lie. It claims ownership where none exists. But this is liberalism from out of which it is birthed. Capitalism is the epitome of liberty, where everything has a price, and if you can pay the cost, you can do as you wish. Christianity has boundaries because it is based on principles. Christianity is principled and thus incapable of being liberal. Capitalism is not principled and is therefore liberal. As with all liberal institutions, what the market offers is entirely up to the buyer and seller. There are no inherent limitations on what can be marketed under the aegis of capitalism. But of course, the behavior of a Christian is very regulated by his or her Christianity. There is no path to reconciliation between Christians and capitalism nor its mother, liberalism.